play.
Hello guys, welcome to the newest ATP Weekly. Of course, the main focus for today is going to be Roland Garros and what transpired there. We have Carlos Alcaraz in the title. We have Mario Boccardi here on the screen. So yeah, Mario. Carlos Alcaraz picking up the title, 2 back-to-back 5-set wins, surface slam as we have in the title. So he has now a title on grass, on clay, and hard. First player ever to pick up 3 titles at Grand Slams, and 3 of them are at different surfaces, as in first 3, and also the youngest player ever to complete that achievement.
Yeah, and actually, if we consider also female player, he is the third. And I wanted to mention that because there is one very big example, which is Serena Williams, as as comparison.
Who's the
So
other?
yeah, and
Who's
then
the other?
Mandlikova is the other
Mandlikova.
one. Yeah.
Mandlikova, really? Okay, I was not expecting that. I was thinking Seles or something like that. No, Seles
No,
didn't
no, no.
win Wimbledon.
It's
Seles
it's
never won
that
Wimbledon.
one. But yeah, actually, it's kind of the first time recently we see that. The first time, as you said, in men's tennis, because also with the big three, we've seen all of them actually win the first 2 at the same event. With Rafa at the French Open, Djokovic at the Australian Open, even if 3 times. Um, there's been 3 times and 3 years, sorry, and Federer at Wimbledon. Also in with female players lately, because Iga Swiatek has won the first 2 at the French Open, Sabalenka with the Australian Open. So it's very unusual, and for them also can just be I don't know if it's just a coincidence, but this for sure tells us that Alcaraz has been, for the very first time. We saw him on the tour. We kind of knew that he was really able to do that on every surface, and because we saw him even in 2021, his first his breakthrough season, talking about coming in the tour. He had some great results, for example at the US Open, when he had a big win over Tsitsipas is not always great at the US Open, but for Alcaraz at that age was such a big win. And then of course in 2022 winning Madrid in that way, beating Nadal and Djokovic back to back. So yeah, I would say that it's just a confirmation of what we already knew about him, that his tennis is unbelievable on all surfaces. I don't know, actually, it's just impressive because yeah, also the way he won the 5 setters at the end of the tournament. He's 11-1 at the 5th set. So only Berrettini in Australia and Alcaraz, was still 18, I guess, had beaten him at the 5th set. So it's even that one, it's unbelievable start, and just shows that Alcaraz is an amazing player. Of course, I expect him to be here for a long time still. So it's been very, very nice to see, also because not everything has been perfect. And this is also, in my opinion, adds something special to this title, because we know that he's able to win these big titles playing flawless tennis, and but actually even doing so at times, it's a great ability also of some champions, raise his level when it matters the most. So it's been a great fortnight for him.
Yeah, and then you touched on something there. Of course, the clay season for him was so weird. He only played Madrid. He had struggles with the arm. Sometimes he couldn't practice. Sometimes he practiced with less intensity. Sometimes it was only the cardio. And yeah, it was. Oh, what? Everything is fine, but don't tell me he's gonna overtake the goat Novak. Says
We are not going. I don't think we.
24. Yeah, 24 is that's something we can talk about once he gets to 20. But
Yes,
definitely,
exactly.
it's for talents like him or Iga Swiatek, whom you also mentioned, you kind of expect 1 slam a year. Otherwise,
Yeah.
it's not a success. Me and Vansh, a lot during the clay season, we were talking okay, so Carlos kind of deserves Roland Garros, because last year he was the big favorite. He of course cramped up in that Novak semi. He didn't handle it too well. But it was, I guess, a little weird that he won Wimbledon and even the US Open before Roland Garros, clay being the natural surface for him. Of course, you can make the case that he actually is much better on hard courts than on clay. You can probably, at least on slower hard courts, you can probably make the case. Although I think he showed a lot of his sort of artistry here as well, and that's something that definitely gets accentuated on this surface. But yeah, that lack of ideal prep is a big story for me. 85%, like that's what I've been saying the entire fortnight. That's what he's been playing at. Because I mean, clearly at the very beginning of the run, he had a little stamina. Like against De Jong, he was already, well, not looking great. If Jesper just had a bit more himself in the tank, maybe the fourth set would have been very different, right? For in that match at the beginning, Carlos was there for the taking, and then you start having questions. And yet he keeps pulling off, easy wins against dangerous opponents. Like Tsitsipas, the best player of the clay season, maybe, and it's not really a match. Even though Carlos is, you can see he's not playing that great. Not like maybe he has good patches, he has flashes of brilliance, but there's still issues, especially on the forehand side with the trust, with the range. Sinner match, fourth set and fifth set were excellent from him, but the start, I mean, yeah, and Zverev final, same, like just so up and down. And I think this title probably would have been looking very different. This event as a whole would have been very different if both Alcaraz and Sinner just had normal play prep. But well, both of them, but especially
Yeah.
Carlos, just dominated the field despite being so hampered by what happened in the warm-ups. So that's even more impressive to me. Like that's not a dig at his level at all. And I saw already that Jake wants to talk about the quality of the men's final, which I guess we might jump to now, right? What did you think of the final against Zverev and just the whole 4-hour clash that had its twists and turns?
I mean, at some point at the beginning, I have to say that the first two sets, despite having been played, let's say, both very well by the player who had won it and not so well by the player who had lost it, but I was kind of enjoying the final, the first two sets. Then there's been a big a big drop in terms of the level from both, actually, because even at the beginning, when Alcaraz went up a break, he still wasn't playing that good in that third set, and it felt to me actually that something could have happened even when he was up 5-2. I don't know if I had to trust him to. In the end, something really happened, and yeah, the end, I would say that it's been probably closer than what the score can suggest, at least the fifth set, because at the beginning there have been some moments that could have changed something, at least score wise. For example, the fourth game where Zverev has those chances to break back. But yeah, absolutely. Let's say that Alcaraz has that ability. I don't want to say that it doesn't need to be fresh, but having that shot making ability, and all those qualities with both swings to just at times bash the ball, but then also change trajectory and then maybe play a drop shot, a lot of variety. Then he's able to mask really well when he's not so fresh physically. When while Zverev, for example, in the last two sets, you could have really seen that his level dropped a lot physically, and consequently also his shots stopped having the uh, some of that also power and depth that he showed in the second and the third set, where he started hitting better the forehand. And in those sets, especially the second, that the first couple of games of the third, that's how Zverev could have ended the match winning the title, if he could have just kept firing his shots also with the forehand, as he did in the end of the second set. But he wasn't evidently a sustainable thing for him, especially when things started to become more mental. And so yeah, in the end, Alcaraz showed why, between the two players who both showed to be able to be very good, why Carlos has that something more, which makes him able then to put his hands on these trophies, and Zverev not.
Yeah, I mean, first set definitely was a clinic. I think he perfectly showed why at the Australian Open, when it was much faster, he just felt so much pressure of the Zverev serve. He felt pressure to like just fire huge forehands and end points at will. But here he was just content, right? He was just chill. He was relaxed. He was just content, out maneuvering Zverev. I remember someone on Twitter actually posting a comment after the first set under my tweet and saying that like the, is Zverev again like having nerve management issues in the final again because he's playing so predictable. And I'm like, well, it's Zverev. Like, what do you expect? He's
Yeah.
always gonna play like this. But obviously, it also led to him actually in the second set once Carlos drops off a little bit, right? And then Zverev actually starts also hitting with so much depth and control on his forehand too. Of course, we've said it many times. The peak version of Zverev is when he trusts that forehand. It
Yeah.
was up and down in this match, but still overall, I would say it was a pretty decent Zverev forehand showing. But yeah, the third set obviously Zverev wins it in like pretty crazy circumstances. I think that's the moment when Carlos looks the worst physically. Definitely the approaches that he suddenly just starts throwing in, just wants to end the point early. When he had these break points for 6-all, I was thinking about the root final at the US Open and how kind of in the third
Mm.
set he barely survived and then he wins. So like I was thinking the same could happen here, but obviously he loses that. And I'm not sure why Snehil, why you're assuming that we are gonna be trying to dodge this Alcaraz double fault, which is of course about that fifth set break point at 2-1, 15-40. First of all, what has to be said is that Hawkeye on clay is not too accurate, as in there's
Has
like a 2-3
as
millimeter.
somebody asked it, sorry, somebody asked it in the chat. No.
Yeah. Higher up. How much ever
Ah,
both
okay.
of you guys try to dodge that this Alcaraz double fault.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Hawker and Clay has a range of error, a margin of error that well, it definitely falls into. We don't know if it was a double fault or if it wasn't. Definitely an important point. However, I still feel like it shouldn't be like the main talking point about the match because it lasted five. Well, no, I don't know. I don't think it lasted 5 hours, but it lasted so long, and there were so many moments when either guy can snatch it that like it's probably a little weird to just make it about that one thing. But obviously, that was important. He didn't get the break. And eventually, after just getting a couple there, Carlos gets more confident. He starts really firing. And in the end, I think I actually listened today to the snippets from press conferences that both Alcaraz and Zverev had at the Ron Garros YouTube channel. And Zverev basically said it, like he saw later on, like someone showed him that
Yeah.
it was out. So like Zverev even said that it was out, that not that Hawkeye said it was out or anything, or he said that Hawkeye said it was out, but like he wasn't doubting it. But he said that well, in the end, I mean, I got outplayed in the fourth and fifth set,
Yeah.
which I think is kind of what we have to say. And yeah, definitely the braver player managed to eventually take it in sets 4 and 5, which I guess is how it works, and that's a bit of a shame for Zverev, who still we will talk about in a second. What else was there with Alcaraz
Yeah,
really?
it's totally different. I think that what happened, for example, in Monte Carlo between
Uh huh.
Tsitsipas and Sinner, because there was larger as a mistake. So basically, if just Sinner would have stopped it, it would have been basically impossible that, that mark would have been called in. But in this case, it's different. The umpire just went there to check the mark and took his decision, and so far it works like that. Since it is only a couple of millimeters, we are not even sure. And I think maybe in no surface we are sure that 2 millimeters
Yeah.
are called 100% right by Hokai. So in the end, I think that it's okay. Maybe you could have asked, did the umpire need to change to interfere with the line call? But in the end, if Alcaraz wanted the mark to get checked, the umpire just goes there and takes his decision. So of course, it was an important point, so I can understand, for example, from Zverev's point of view, or that maybe you can get a little bit disappointed that, but in the end, I don't think it's such a big deal in terms of the whole match. Would have been 2-all. A lot of things could have still happened. So it's it's very difficult to analyze it. So yeah.
Definitely an important moment, but not like the main story of the match, which,
Yeah.
after all, is probably still Zverev not being able to like stick to what was working for him in sets 2 and 3, stick to his more aggressive tennis, and eventually Alcaraz taking it in a five-setter, first player to like win both semis and 5 sets since the Open era, basically since 1962. He
Yeah,
also
the
comes
French
back
Open.
from what? Yeah, he also comes. Oh, the French, of course. Yeah, that's what I meant. He also comes back from 2 sets to 1 down in both matches. Which again, Brenda is talking a lot about the quality and like kind of expectations, which is true. Like I saw a lot of criticism about this match, and I think for the most part, it's coming from like hardcore tennis fans. But I think especially for more casual observers, like if they watch this match, they're gonna be still in love with the battle, with the physical
Yeah.
aspect of it as well. I think matches like this still push the sport forward. Obviously, I am a big fan of the best of five format as a whole. But to me, if you're just sort of like tuning into some matches in tennis throughout the year, I don't know, 5 or 10, you definitely enjoyed it. Like it's not really like the complaints are only coming from purists, let's say.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
yeah, and also, I mean, also the match against Sinner, same level. I remember Sinner saying in press conference, "Yeah, maybe this time you saw a little more mistakes than usually in the matches we play one against the other, but still the level as someone who is on court, the level is still quite high, even if you maybe see a lot of mistakes because of what is required by the players to show in these slam semifinals and finals. So I in the end, it's even a bit worthless to talk about the performance of the player who won because winning is kind of the only thing that really matters in the end. But in my opinion, it also shows I pretty like these matches where a player manages to win even not playing clinical the whole match. Let's say that between him and Iga we saw kind of two opposite way of winning a major title, even if Iga had a difficult match throughout. But later stages, one it's been clinical, one it's been his Alcaraz had a lot of troubles, but in the end, two different ways of winning, and every way for me has some beautiful things to tell and to focus on. So in the end, I'm pretty okay with high quality, not so much, but still a lot of battles. I think that the final ending in 5 sets is always good for people and fans.
I don't know, Snehi. I mean, Sumit Nagal at the French Open, not much to talk about. Heilbronn, yes. Let's give him a shout out for the Heilbronn title. Very good run. I mean, yeah, Van Asch, especially in the semis, Gakov in the quarters, Richard in the final. But I think with this show, we usually don't tend to focus on challengers too much. So probably not going to get too much of a mention here. Anyway, Alexander Zverev, let's talk about him. I mean, he made another final, which is great, of course. Yeah, second final after 3.5 years. Definitely it's a step forward. But yeah, does it give you like more hope that Zverev will win a slam title at some point? Or does it actually tell you, oh, no, he's always going to bottle it, basically?
I'm not optimistic, I have to be honest, because at the end of the third set, I felt that even if Alcaraz could have raised his level, I still felt like this is a chance, a big chance for Zverev, even considering the opponent, all things, because it's still a big chance. So if he loses it, it's gonna be very difficult. It's not been easy for him to get to Grand Slam finals, first of all, because this was his first one in 3 years and a half. So it's not like he's been able to play these kind of matches a lot of times in his career. It's been kind of a different story. If, for example, we compare it to Medvedev, I don't know if we have to make a comparison. So, and then also, it's always for me a big issue for him. We've always talked about how he is superbly fit. He can play long matches back to back without getting tired, and still be able to push to rally a lot to have good results. But then in the end, the last couple of sets, I've been like, but what if he had spent a little bit less time on the court? Um, Not that maybe he would have still been a little bit fresher in the end. Then that's also the mental part. We've talked a lot always about that. But I don't want not talk about the fact that he usually spends so many energies on the court in Grand Slams to get to the later stages. And then when you are forced to play long matches, back to back to back to back, then it gets difficult when you are one set away. You have two sets to play against someone like Alcaraz, and even if maybe you don't show it a lot, but your legs start feeling heavier, and maybe so your serve, which is an important weapon for you, especially against these kind of players, becomes less effective. And that, in my opinion, is also an issue of him, or can be. At least yesterday I also saw him pretty in not very good state physically, at least in terms of freshness. There wasn't an injury, but in terms of freshness. And then of course also, there's always this mental thing about him not really going maybe for it in when there are these important moments. But in my opinion, the beginning of the fourth set, you can't do this, give some points in that moment of the match, because that moment was very, very important for him. Because maybe even if he would have managed, I don't want to say to get a break, but to stay there, who knows then going on in the fourth what could have happened. Maybe Alcaraz would have won anyway, but it just cuts your chances a lot when you've just won a big set, the third one, coming back from 2-5 down, winning the last 5 games, and then in 10 minutes basically you are three love down, and suddenly Alcaraz is back also psychologically into the match.
Yeah, that the way that fourth set ran away from him was definitely a little weird and unexpected for sure. After the third set, he seemed like much stronger physically, and he was until the end, really. But indeed, obviously, he was not that fresh either. Yeah, I have mixed feelings about this too. In Australia, because by the way, Snehil, what you're talking about, yeah, I agree. Roland Garros is probably his best chance, but like, let's remember, in Australia, he pretty much should have been in the final.
Yeah.
2 sets to love up against Medvedev, he totally blows it. And I don't know, maybe he beats Sinner in the final. It's definitely not an outrageous thought. It would be possible. So I have mixed feelings about this because, well, for one thing, being in more and more finals gives you more experience in them, obviously, but also it just makes the scar tissue greater, right? I mean, just start thinking about all of these moments against Team and against Alcaraz, and both of them five setters. One different than the other, one where he had a very clear chance to win,
Yeah.
and also but in Australia, the GOAT is going to be back. Novak? Oof, oof, oof. We're going to talk about Novak later, but that's,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a thing anymore. But anyway, with Zverev, definitely the scar tissue also is greater, and he's lost 2 5 setters now in the Slam finals. One of them very painful. This one probably less so, but given that he's already 27, 3.5 years
Mm.
since his last final, I don't know. And also, yeah, just these early rounds that you mentioned. In Australia, he plays 5 setters against Cam Norrie and Lucas Klein. Against Klein, especially, he's super close to losing. I mean, against Norrie as well. It was a fifth set tiebreak. Here, Talon Grigspor has him 4-1 in the fifth set with a
Yeah.
double break. And also Holger, of course, also comes a tiebreak away. So how often can you actually pull through matches like this? And I know he does it on a pretty regular basis, but like if he plays 6 of them in a Grand Slam season in the early rounds, he probably loses like twice in these rounds. So I mean, yeah, he's putting himself
Yeah.
into under a lot more pressure than he should, and yeah, just giving himself a lot more work than he should. Is it sustainable? I don't really know. He's going to be one of the contenders, but this was a brilliant chance given that Novak went out. And even if he did get to the semis with Sasha, I think Zverev probably would have had a very fine chance against him this time. Also, Alcaraz and Sinner having not ideal clay court prep, being in the second part of the draw, Tsitsipas being in the second part of the draw.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't know if a better chance is going to pop up. Certainly, it is possible. We said it in Australia that the problem with Zverev is not really the game, and I think we can just repeat it here.
Yeah, also the ranking situation was good in my opinion, because if, for example, now, I don't know, I don't know about Wimbledon because he never came close in Wimbledon. But if we
Yeah,
talk about US Open and Australian Open, if, for example, Sinner and Alcaraz are 1 and 2 in the draw, and this was kind of good for you because you are number 4, you are in uh, the section of Novak, which we will talk about him maybe, but from the opposite side, then Sinner and Alcaraz, he can still beat them. He showed it, but still, these are currently the two best players in the world. So it was definitely a very, very big chance, also because this was also coming from the Rome title. Everything was going well for him also in general in this month. He's had one of his best probably months of tennis, considering also titles wins. And so yeah, let's see if this is going to happen. But it's normal for me right now to doubt a little bit. Not that I never had doubts, but at some point I thought, maybe this can go his way, even if then it didn't.
Yep, and there was also, did Federer win a slam after knee surgery? The initial one in 2016, yes,
Ah, okay,
free
the
slams
initial
in
one,
fact.
yes.
The one later, no. Okay. I know there was also this one. We can answer that. Damien, if I was to ask you now whether Zverev wins a major eventually, what would your answer be? We were recording the Iga and Carlos show with Vansh last night, and he basically asked, like, do I definitely think that Zverev will win a major? And I said no, because I cannot really go with the word definitely.
Yeah.
If you're telling me to go yes or no, I would probably lean no. I'm sorry, but Alcaraz and Sinner are only gonna get stronger. Alcaraz and Sinner are likely going to be like, at least one of them will be going into every slam healthy. And yeah, this just felt like a great opportunity. The baggage is gonna keep building up. Can he beat Medvedev on hard courts? Unlikely. Can he beat Tsitsipas on clay courts? Unlikely. So yeah, my answer is no.
Yeah, let's say that I'm the same way. I cannot say, yes, I cannot say no. But if I have, if it's a Twitter survey and I just have to click, probably right now I click on the no, even if, it's not a definitely no. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if it's going to happen once. But right now, no is my answer.
All right. Let's actually, because Snaky is very clearly wants to talk about Novak Djokovic, or at least let's just talk about him actually.
Okay.
I don't know, just randomly. Let's then go to Sinner and Ruud. But Novak Djokovic, of course, pulled out with that right knee injury. Quite a controversial topic as well. Pavic recorded like 45 minutes of video of footage about this, about the scheduling and about the slippery lines after which the injury happened. Not the lines even, but the court after which the injury happened. That whole incident. But yeah, as a whole, just I guess where I am at with Novak right now is that we've seen a lot of careers kind of end this way. That
Yeah.
there's this first pretty serious injury, and then of course you come back, but then you never really get back to full fitness anymore. And not in the sense that he won't be playing some decent matches and that he won't be looking fine, but sort of like Rafa's career at the beginning of 2023, it just disappeared in a way, because he's never going to be back to like his 100% prime version. And that's basically what I'm kind of asking right now. And the physicality aspect of winning a slam, I think it's getting tougher and tougher on him. We even saw it. I know he won 3 slams last year, but like we even saw it there that he had to take like a little bit of a breather in some of the sets. I don't know. Just seeing this year, it's pretty hard for me to believe that Novak has more slams left in him. But we'll find out. Obviously, there's many times we've said it about all the members of the Big Three, and they've come back and won them again. So definitely can't write him off just completely.
Yeah, I mean, I am. I have also been one who I remember we were on a show together, and I've said for me Novak is not going to be tier one at the French Open, because I made kind of the same thought. And then I also thought about the clay, the French Open, how difficult had been for him. Then maybe the draw, having avoided the potential semi-final with Sinner and Alcaraz, probably gave a little bit more, mm, why not? But then in the end, a lot of, it never looked really uh, unbeatable at the French Open, I think. And then it's been the injury, of course. So, it ended, of course, in an unfortunate way. Uh, I thought that, you know, probably Wimbledon on the grass could have been still an opportunity this year for him, but now the injury, of course, you know, there is more than a question mark about his presence, even. So I cannot even think right now about, you know, really winning the title. But for me this year, probably Wimbledon could have been a very good chance because, you know, we saw last year he only got the loss against Alcaraz at the fifth set, and still he had a lot of chances. And the quicker courts, he moves really well on the grass. It's not very much physical as a surface. So I thought that that could have been a good one. Especially also because maybe the competition with some of, you know, this top 10 player is a bit lower on the hard. For example, if you are Djokovic, maybe you can lose to Medvedev, for example, or maybe someone like, I don't know, a Sinner played well at Wimbledon, but maybe on hardcourt is even more dangerous. I don't know. I thought it could have been a good chance for him still this year at Wimbledon, but yeah, right now it's difficult to imagine. And yeah, I agree with you. We always saw that the decline is fast for this kind of career. They are able to stay there and keep winning trophies until, you know, they last peak moment, and then they can suddenly decline. I don't know if it's a definitive decline, but for sure it's going to be tougher and tougher. That's for sure. So right now it's really difficult for me to talk about his chances in a major because it's going also to be maybe a lot of time. Let's imagine a slam, I don't know, at the US Open, both Alcaraz and Sinner gets deep and you manage to get in the semis, and maybe you even manage to beat, I don't know, for example, Sinner in the semis in 5 sets, and then maybe you have to go against someone like Alcaraz in the final. It's difficult to imagine. Then I mean everything can happen. We don't know how any of them is going to be from a physical point of view, and still we don't know a lot about Novak's recovery. So you know, I don't want to close the door 100%, but yeah, it's started looking more and more and more difficult for him, that's for sure.
Yeah, it just kind of follows the trajectory of like some other players' careers,
Mm.
falling apart with age, which is natural. I agree that yeah, Wimbledon would have been a great chance. I just don't know if I really trust it right now, even if he makes it for Wimbledon. And this round Garros, I mean, just after watching him against Musetti plus then against Cerundolo, before we had the withdrawal, I don't know. It just felt like a 0% chance that he then gets through Ruud, Zverev, and Alcaraz or Sinner. Like that's
Yeah.
just such a tough ordeal after already playing 2 5 setters. But yeah, we'll see. Obviously, this is a guy that previously has been written off quite a lot, and always delivered. Always managed to upset the odds again. Speaking of the semifinalists, let's maybe start with Casper Ruud, and I'll actually talk about this in a bit of a different way. Today, I saw a tweet from Casper Ruud, which I think kind of represents some of the issues with him. As in, he posted a photo of Sinner and Alcaraz, and I'm a little harsh here. I'm also a little like really trying to look into his mind and
I
what
just
he
know
was
what you're going to say.
but there's the Sinner Alcaraz tweet, and he says that it's so great watching them play, or something like that. And of course, that doesn't mean that you don't believe you're in the same category. Like it's not really, excluding itself. But I think he really doesn't. Like I think he's just looking up to them same way he was looking up to Novak and Rafa 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and he just doesn't believe he's in the same boat. He doesn't believe he's in the same category of players. And yes, Ghosty, Ruud had stomach problems. I'm not necessarily talking about this particular event. Certainly, that was something that impacted his semifinal chances. He was playing, Zverev was playing some of his least gutless tennis of the entire fortnight in the semis for sure. But yeah, I just don't feel like, as Snady says, I don't feel like he belongs. I don't feel like he feels he belongs in there. And also, Brendas is the same, that he doesn't believe in himself like they do. I think with Casper, when he says something like that how fantastic it is to watch them play. I feel like the sort of hidden meaning in it is as well, I'm not really like that. Like people don't look at me like this. I don't belong with them, and it's a problem. Like only if you really believe that you belong, that's when you can start beating them, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We saw also, for example, Sinner and Alcaraz are two players who've always had kind of a good relationship. But we saw, for example, when they congratulated each other, still talk kind of in another way, rather than the way Ruud, is doing with the post. Um, so even when they both, for example, talk about their rivalry, they both are like, yeah, of course, now, for example, Sinner is like, now I have to, I have to go back to work and change something because it got me the last couple of times, and so I want to get back to beat him. But even in WTA, for example, when Sabalenka, for example, talks about Iga, even if she's 3-8 in the head to head, so Iga wins most of their matches, but she's still very positive when she talks about the rivalry, meaning that she focusing on what she has to do and she wants to beat her, and it's a motivation. For Casper, it's a bit different. Yeah, mm, you know. It feels different. It felt like a post that someone like Del Potro, for example, would do. Some retired um,
Yeah.
player of the sport, just watching them and feeling like tennis is in good hands, something like that. You should want to be more, uh, and it's a bit of a, I was saying a bit of a shame, I don't know if I can say it, because it's a little bit totally the opposite issue than from guys like Zverev, or also Tsitsipas, for example, who they believe in themselves a lot. But I thought that probably among these guys, Ruud is the one probably the best work ethic, also working a lot on himself and trying to improve something on his game at times, even regardless of he's able to show it or not on the court. But his issue is then that maybe, yeah, he doesn't really believe in himself even at the beginning of the tournament. You're coming from a very good clay season because you reached the final in Monte Carlo, you won in Barcelona. Yeah, Madrid and Rome didn't really go well, but you still, have been, you are the guy who won the most on the main tour, regardless of titles and all this. And you come into the French Open, and the first press conference you say, these four players, and he mentions Sinner, Alcaraz, Nadal, and Djokovic, are in another league. And it's wrong. Not that it's wrong, it's right maybe, but it's wrong, for you probably to say that. So yeah, I agree. Then, I mean, for this event, I don't know how much I don't think it matters that much, because of all what happened in the semi-final. Actually was barely able to move at some point of that match against Zverev. So it was clearly, hampered by that problem, and I don't know what would have happened in that semi-final. But in general, yes, that's the feeling. You're totally right about that.
Yeah, and that's actually an interesting point as well from Snehi, that Tsitsipas has lost belief. I think just put Alcaraz as the opponent and see the way Tsitsipas is awestruck by Alcaraz. Is he actually though, or is he just completely outplayed in this matchup? Mostly,
Yeah,
honestly, I
exactly.
just feel like he's even more outplayed on clay in this matchup than he would be anywhere else. Like
Yeah,
throw him onto. Oh, actually, this is a good exercise. Like let's throw Stefanos Tsitsipas on a quick indoor court against Carlos Alcaraz, and maybe then we're gonna see. Like if he's
yeah.
still not touching Carlos there, then probably you're right. Probably
The
you have
main
a point.
issue, the main issue is that Tsitsipas so far, lately, at least lately, has been so much consistent only on clay to be able to play Alcaraz,
Yeah.
and so he's also his issue to solve if he wants to beat Alcaraz and try to do it in other conditions. It's not Alcaraz's fault if they only played so far lately. I mean, in Barcelona and French Open. So that's also,
Yeah, I think obviously Tsitsipas is better on clay than indoors or on hard courts in general. But I think he's better at beating most of the tour. But then the Alcaraz
yeah,
matchup comes in, and like all of the assets that he wins, like the all-rounded game that he wins against most others on clay with, it just doesn't matter. Like he just
yeah,
completely overwhelms him on the
yeah, yeah,
back
yeah,
end side. There's nothing he can do. Whereas at least indoors, he would have the chance of like serving him off the court, being super aggressive.
yeah.
And
I
then, of
agree.
course, against some other players on the tour, that's when he is losing actually, because they target the back end
Yeah,
return and stuff, and the matches get like a bit more lottery like. But maybe in the Carlos matchup, it actually would be better for him to play him on faster courts. But yeah, I mean, we haven't really seen that too much. I guess they've played 6 times now, and it's been like what, 2 Barcelona, 2 Roland Garros,
The
one
last
US
four, I
Open.
think, have been on clay because we have
And what was
been.
the second match then? Uh, cannot remember
I
now.
don't remember.
But
I
yeah,
actually don't
anyway,
remember
definitely
if we
four
don't
on
check.
clay, definitely Roland Garros. I also checked up in the meantime, and Ruud is 0-2 down against Sinner and 0-4 down against. Where is Nottingham Open? What do you mean? In Nottingham, yeah, like Jake said. I mean, it's currently currently it's I mean I think it's raining at them today, but they played some matches already in the qualifying, and later on there's supposed to be main draw as well, Evan Stricker for example. But yeah, I checked, and Ruud hasn't beaten Alcaraz and Sinner, but at least he hasn't played them in a while too, so it's not like he's been losing to
Yeah,
them all the time.
especially
But
Sinner.
yeah, Sinner he hasn't played since 2021, I think, and Alcaraz only one match since the beginning of 2023. So like, but yeah, if we imagine him playing them, it's probably not gonna be good, right? And what was I gonna check? Alcaraz Tsitsipas, right? Um, and I guess in the meantime we can just start talking about Yannick Sinner as well. Of course, he was the
Yeah,
semi-finalist. We kind of took a long route to get to him, but I mean, he was in this event. He was kind of like Carlos, 85% on the way to the semis. What went wrong for him there? What was the difference between these two, who both had not ideal clay prep, but then when they actually played, eventually one of them was able to prevail. And that other, oh wow, Alcaraz Tsitsipas, that other match is in Miami. I don't remember that at all.
oh, 22.
Yeah, 22,
No.
but
Ah, okay. Yeah. Don't remember me neither, honestly. So
I
I don't
remember
know what to
nothing
say.
about this match. But yeah, that was their
Me
second, I
neither.
think. Yeah.
Well, I think thumbs up for Yannick. Of course, he got to number one. He had probably a even more difficult injuries in order to the prepare, because at least Alcaraz was able to do physical preparation before starting hitting, while Sinner with the hip injury was really difficult for him to do the physical preparation for the tournament. Then he also had some fever while doing the rehab, so it's definitely be a tough road for him towards the French Open. But despite this, I feel like we saw that he's perfectly able to do well on the clay. I mean, in the end, even against a guy like Dimitrov, who's number 10 in the world and was playing very well throughout the tournament, he had very, very few issues in order to win also that one match. So yeah, I would say that it's still been a very good run for him. Impressive the way he turned out that third set, even if Alcaraz helped him when he was he had those cramping in the hands and the arm. I felt like in the end the main difference, it's been that Alcaraz was also cramping a little bit, but probably that fitness level made a little bit the difference. Alcaraz was able to serve a bit better in the end. He was a bit fresher, but still was very, very close, because Alcaraz had to win his last 3 service games to deuce. So it's been a very, very close match till the end. And I would say that, considering all the narratives that were going on about Sinner on clay and all the question mark that people were putting on him for the clay season, have been kind of answered, even if he didn't got a title in the clay season. So I think that it's been a pretty good showing, and then encouraging things heading into the next part of the season.
Yeah, I guess maybe the difference between them was that like Carlos could do a lot of cardio while he was not playing, right? But Sinner probably couldn't with the hip. It maybe that showed up. Like obviously Yannick had the bigger physical dips. The second set, especially when he couldn't finish off a point anymore. Like
Yeah.
regardless of how short the ball was, he just couldn't. I think until the last game in that set, he had like one winner the entire duration of it. Later on was obviously fine. Fourth and fifth set, that was definitely the best that they both played. It's
Yeah.
good that we got that sort of show from them as well. As a whole, the entertainment value of the match was definitely really good too. But yeah, definitely not the US Open 2022 in terms of the quality and everything. Yeah, it wasn't quite that, nor we should expect it to be every time they play. But I
Yeah, of
still
course.
was satisfied and kind of remember sitting here on the stream, and when the fifth set kicked in, I was like, we prevailed. Tennis has already won, and that's kind of how I feel like about this match. There was some comments as well from Snacking, who said that by the semis, lots of people were going for Sinner. Actually, the betting favorite was like pretty significantly Alcaraz. I was a little surprised, maybe even by how much, but obviously the match was close. There was even a part of it when we thought that maybe it's gonna be a blowout for Sinner. It was kind of Indian Wells like in that sense, but of course it was longer, so then we had a bit more momentum shifts as well.
Yeah, I
Yes, Ron,
mean,
I
let's say
did.
that probably it's not, a good thing about this rivalry is also that mm, it's not really surface and condition dependent, at least in terms of will the match be close. The match will be more or less close in any case, pretty much everywhere. And at least so far, it's been more or less like that. And yeah, it feels good. So for me, I would say that, for me, both have done, have kind of showed that right now they are pretty much above the rest of the field. Being able to play that kind of, especially for Sinner, who last year left the French Open in a bittersweet way. To be able to do this kind of run despite all the hip issues in the previous weeks was huge for me, in my opinion, and will be good also for his confidence once he will, digest the loss and think about his French Open campaign in a while. So very interested to see what happens on the grass for both.
Yeah, I think that's what we're gonna touch on as like the last part of the show, really, before briefly mentioning Stuttgart and Hertogenbosch as well. But yeah, also I'll say that comment made me laugh, Ghosty, about my post puke variation. Uh, I don't know how good I will be then, but it's probably gonna be effing good, based on Oscarotte and Yannick Sinner. And yeah, going into the grass, we have Sinner and Alcaraz as the main favorites. But like, two questions: is there anyone who can really rival them? And second of all, is it more probable that, like, when the draw comes out, we'll be looking at some dangerous third round, fourth rounds for them, because it's grass, because it's like a little bit more, the margins are a little slim?
Uh, I mean, it's difficult right now. I mean, the previous showings for both of them at Wimbledon have been very good. Of course, Alcaraz is a Wimbledon champion, but also Yannick Sinner in the past 2 years has played, well at Wimbledon, showing that he can win a lot of matches and go deep. Has been beaten both times by Djokovic. Mm, so yeah, I'm not really talking about their level of performance, which I'm pretty sure that if they are fine physically, it will be high. But maybe the dangerous opponents will, change, of course, a little bit comparing to the clay. So there can be maybe some opponents. I don't know if let's imagine. I don't know if it's possible, but if someone like Urkac found a service day like he did against Djokovic last year, maybe there can be trouble. If I don't know if Berrettini will be fine, but he's another guy who always plays well on the grass season. Last year came into Wimbledon with basically no preparation and still beat Minor and Zverev both in straight sets.
That was after
So
the crying, right, against Sonego in Queens. So yeah,
yes,
definitely
exactly.
unexpected.
Exactly. Beaten 6-1, 6-2. So he had no preparation at all, basically, coming into Wimbledon and still, managed to get these big wins and also a set against Alcaraz. So, was a huge Wimbledon campaign for him, considering, the place he was. Right now, he is more or less in the similar situation, even if he won a title this year. And this also shows that he's able to come back pretty quickly. Who else? Who can play well? I mean, Medvedev has been a semi-finalist last year. I don't know how well he can play on the grass. I always have some doubts about him on the grass, even more than on the clay, actually, even if he got to that semi-final. For me, it's because of that return position and a lot of things that I see in his game that I don't really trust him. That plus right now is not even serving that well. So I can feel like, if he doesn't fix this issue on the grass, he will have a lot of troubles. Who can be? I mean, Dan Evans. A couple of
Dan
years
Evans
ago.
is gonna lose to Stricker today, probably. I mean, that's all I'm gonna say.
Ben
And definitely not
Shelton,
winning two
depending.
500 titles. Definitely not winning two 500 titles from here.
I mean, there are guys who can be dangerous. The big question about all of them, if I mean, how they will be physically, how they will be mentally, how consistent they're gonna be. Um, but yeah, I honestly feel like we're starting witnessing these two guys getting better and better, and it's becoming even less difficult to predict some loss by them in best of five. Of course, it will happen, and I wouldn't be shocked in any case. I mean, but still, it's difficult right now just watching the field as it is without having watched a lot of tournaments on grass and the draws. But yeah, probably there can be some dangerous opponents for sure.
Yeah, generally, I do feel like there's gonna be more in regards to the draw. Like, there's gonna be,
Mm,
we're gonna be looking at it and thinking, oh, this guy may be in the third round. This guy in the fourth round could be dangerous. Unlike
yeah,
here, when we were just saying, who are they gonna lose to really? Because the margins are slimmer on grass courts. And last year, let's imagine that Sinner plays 10% worse on the day, and he probably loses to Quentin Alice in the third round. Puente Vallis will probably not be in the Wimbledon main draw this year, but like, yeah, an equivalent of that.
yeah,
Or
yeah,
Carlos Alcaraz, who won the fourth set against Nicolas Jarry in the fourth round from 2-5 to 7-5, right? So, yeah,
yeah, yeah.
that,
That's for
that,
sure.
that sort of thing can happen at Wimbledon, but they're still the main favorites, and no one else is really going to be close to that 1-2 position, regardless of, like, Zverev hasn't done well at Wimbledon. Tsitsipas, again, so many issues with his backhand there. Medvedev, I've always really believed on grass, but I really believed in on grass, but time is running away from him, kinda in that sense. I mean, he only will have a few more chances probably, and
Yeah,
Alcaraz and Sinner have gotten
I believe
stronger.
him less on the grass right now because of all. Also, the issue is having game wise. That makes me
Yeah,
think
the
like,
shoulder. Yeah,
if those things don't work for him on the grass, how is he going to? Because
yeah.
his level on return is a bit lower than on other surfaces, maybe, and so I don't know. It can become really different. I mean, the French Open, we've had some good moments, but overall, the final defeat was bad. I mean, that's the whole clay season for him. Not that
Yeah,
I
I
was
agree. I agree with
expecting
you,
that
though. But
much,
if
but
the
I
serving issues
never I
continue, it's
never
gonna be
thought
much
for a
tougher.
moment that it could have been a factor at the French Open.
Medvedev. Yeah, I mean, not
Yeah.
for the title, not for the title. For the second week, sure, but not for the title. But yeah, if his shoulder problems continue, then grass is gonna be very tough for him this year, tougher than in previous years. Yes, for sure. And oh, I see Nottingham is, by the way, restarting, so maybe we will get Stricker against Evans after all. So many times we've mentioned Dan Evans today already, a lot too many times. But yeah, the ATP 250 events, just briefly, are going to be Hertogenbosch and Stuttgart for this week. Jake, how dare you jinx Zhizhen Zhang, who's now in the third set against Dominic Kepfer, since you said that he's about to close out Kepfer. But yeah, any big stories there in Stuttgart or Hertogenbosch? I think Hertogenbosch definitely a couple of wildcards that deserve a mention, because we finally have, well, hopefully at least, Tim van Rijthoven back. He was
Oh yeah.
supposed to be playing already, but today Hertogenbosch has been just constantly, flooded with rain. We also have Milos Raonic, who's playing Jordan Thompson again. Wasn't that the first round in Hertogenbosch last year as well? Or no, second round maybe, right? Second
Possibly. I
round.
remember that match happening. Yeah.
Yeah, because Jordan beat him, so it was the second round. And with Stuttgart, I guess it's super wild that Zverev still wants to play this event, right?
Yeah, I honestly can't believe because he also had the pretty weird answer in press conference because he said that his chances of playing it are equal as his chances of be back on the court against Alcaraz and play again the final. But then he starts this saying, I mean, I will be back to Berlin and then I will see. So I just don't know, but I'm pretty sure he's going to withdraw, because if not, I mean, it's not really, a human thing after playing 23 hours in the French Open, then to be back on the court the following week for Stuttgart. Given that I cannot even say playing at home, because it's also Halle, which is a bigger tournament, and it's also in Germany. So I really don't think that he's going to play. But yeah, overall, very entertaining weeks on the grass, especially because it's a different thing. We have it, just 5 weeks a year, 3 weeks if we exclude, the Slam, which is Wimbledon. So talking
One more
about, of
if you
course,
add Surbiton. One more if you add
yeah, of
Surbiton.
course. I was talking, of course, just about the, main tour. And yeah, so it's always interesting to see what's going to happen, which players are going to look good on the grass, if there will be, similar stories to what happened last year, or there will be new one. We've seen some good surprises in these tournaments always, because also being a very different kind of thing, maybe it takes a bit of time for some players to adapt. And I don't know, but it's definitely going to be nice as always. This week we are going to have already some very, very good action with some top players, talking about top 20, 25 players in some of those on those tournaments. So let's see what it's going to be. Let's see if we're going to have our answer of the the possible dark horses for Wimbledon, even if a lot of times then I remember, for example, when Urkac won in Halle, even if, I mean, he had a tough first round in Wimbledon then. But yeah, let's just see what's going to happen.
Yeah, Hurkacz, definitely a good shout, by the way, for that previous conversation. Like, he legit might be the third favorite for Wimbledon
Yeah,
right now.
yeah, absolutely.
And well, I don't know if I trust him, because obviously in best of five he's struggling all the time as well, just getting into ridiculous five setters. But last year at Wimbledon, well, he got the easiest draw he could have with Choinski and Ramos Vinolas, I think, in the first two rounds. But still, like, that
Yeah, but that
was an
that lost the
example
match
of.
against Djokovic.
And Musetti as well. The third round was
Yeah,
fantastic.
Musetti
Yeah,
also was a big one. Yeah.
maybe he is the third favorite for Wimbledon right now. And yeah, he's actually not playing this week. He used to play Stuttgart quite a lot, but he's not. Only Jack Draper so far into the second round in Stuttgart. As I mentioned, Hertogenbosch is pretty much just rain from the beginning of today, but maybe, hopefully, they will sort it out in time for us to still see Team Van Rijthoven on the court. If not, he will just play Zizou Bergs tomorrow. Stuttgart seems to be going fine for now. Still, Henry Squire, Yannick Hanfman, and Hamad Medjedovic, Fabian Marozsan left there today. Draper beat Offner in a couple of tie breaks. And yeah, I guess this is going to be more or less it, right? Do we have much more to say? Snehid with a Iga and Hurkacz double for Wimby. Oh, a Polish
Let's see
double
what
at
happens.
Wimbledon. Who has a better chance of winning Wimbledon? Is it Świątek or is it Hurkacz? I mean, it's still Iga, right?
Yeah, I think it's Tiliga. Yeah, I mean, because it depends. I mean, then we also will see the draws. I think that the draws will tell us a lot. If Iga will avoid, some of her dangerous opponents, and at Wimbledon, I still think that she has more chances than Hubi, but Hubi has a very, very good chance, in my opinion, to do well at Wimbledon. Then I don't know well what it means, but to do well.
Yeah, and if he can keep himself in that in that first eight in the seeding range, and that especially is going to be a little easier if Novak doesn't fall, if Novak doesn't play, then he will avoid Sinner Alcaraz until the quarters. Last year, of course, he played Novak in the fourth round, but I don't know if it's even better. I
Yeah, I
mean,
mean,
he
it
was
will
so
be the
close to beating
same,
Novak.
because
Yeah,
9, 12 seeds are with 5-8 in the fourth round, but still avoid the guys.
I mean,
Mm.
for one more round, avoid the guys for one more round, because
Yeah,
clearly at
exactly.
Wimbledon last year he was one of the best players
Yeah, absolutely.
and
Yeah.
wasn't really able to show it. Although that was also him choking that first set away. And yeah, Jake, I know that I missed Nurlan's question, but I mean, when Nurlan was asking it, I don't think he was expecting me to answer it. Like, I think even by Nurlan's standards, this was clearly a joke question. I mean, sorry, Nurlan, but What do you want me to talk about?
Yes, absolutely. It was in Paulini's hands. I don't think she will ever forgive herself.
Yeah, absolutely horrible showing from Jasmine Paolini. I mean, she pretty much had Iga on the ropes. Iga was just like,
She was
they
so close to beat her because she was a breakup.
yeah, they had to tend to her because she was bleeding from all over, and then basically they barely kept her for the final round, and then the judges, unfortunately, they gave that horrible decision, 115-11 to Świątek. But that
Yeah,
was
by the
that
way,
wasn't
it's an
true.
historical week for Italian tennis because we have some top five in all the four races. Because it's Sinner at number one in the race at ATP, Paulini is fifth on the
Are
WTA.
you
I don't
counting
know for how
Borelli
much,
and
but still.
Passori? Are you
Yes,
counting
they are
Borelli and
fourth,
Passori? Okay.
and Errani and Paulini are second in WTA doubles race. So
First time,
it's a
two
nice
players in the top 10 as well, right? Like
at the
on one
same
on
time. Yes,
men's and women's.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's the
that's
first time that it happens at the same time. Yeah.
yeah. All right. And as I said earlier, that's going to be it then. And thank you guys for appearing here. Michael, you were a little late, I think, but indeed, Carlos Alcaraz is the champion again. And well, kudos to him. Thank you, Mario. Thank you to everyone who
Thank
showed
you
up.
very much.
I think the WTA Weekly is later today, but don't quote me on that.
That's what I can recall, but you have to check on the social
Exactly. Yeah.
because we
Check
can
for
be
check
wrong.
for yourselves on the channel because I'm not sure, but I think it is later today. Anyway, of course, there's going to be a lot more content coming up from Talking Tennis at Wimbledon during the grass season during Wimbledon. I think John is going to be in a couple of events as well, so keep tuning into that. Thankfully, we are back on YouTube, and I hope that we're not going to be taken down any time. What did I want to say? Never mind. I lost myself there.
Anytime
But
soon,
anyway,
maybe.
Dan Evans will dominate. Yes, watch Dan Evans against Dominic Streaker today. That's really one of the matches of the day. And once again, thank you, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.